You say your dog's name and its head tilts to one side, ears perked, eyes locked on your face like it's trying to understand every single word. You melt a little every time. Everyone melts a little every time. But have you ever actually asked yourself what is happening inside that tilted head and why this one specific gesture feels so uniquely, powerfully affectionate? It turns out scientists have asked the exact same question, and the answer is stranger and more touching than a simple cute reflex. Think about the last time your dog tilted its head at you. Was it when you said its name, when you asked a question in an excited voice, when you made an unfamiliar sound? Dogs do not tilt their heads at random. The timing is remarkably consistent, and that consistency is exactly what caught the attention of researchers studying canine behavior. A research team led by a scientist named Attila Andics at the Family Dog Project at Erzsébet University in Hungary has spent years studying how dogs process human speech and language, using everything from behavioral experiments to actual brain imaging of awake, unrestrained dogs. In a study published in 2021, Andics' team focused specifically on head tilting, and what they found reshaped how researchers think about this small, familiar gesture. The team worked with a group of dogs already known for something unusual, an ability to learn and remember the names of multiple different toys, sometimes dozens of them, a genuinely rare skill even among dogs since most dogs never reliably learn object names at all. Researchers call these dogs gifted word learners. When the team compared how often these gifted word learner dogs tilted their heads during testing sessions against dogs without this special vocabulary skill, they found something striking. The gifted word learner dogs tilted their heads dramatically more often, and specifically during moments when they heard a familiar, meaningful word, not just any sound at all. This detail matters enormously. If head tilting were simply a random quirk or purely a physical reflex tied to hearing any noise, there would be no reason for it to cluster so specifically around meaningful, recognized words. Instead, the pattern suggests that head tilting may be connected to a moment of genuine cognitive engagement, the brain actively processing and recognizing something significant, rather than simply reacting to sound. Andics' team proposed that the head tilt might reflect a kind of heightened attention state, a signal that the dog's brain has locked onto something it recognizes as meaningful and important. This does not mean every dog that tilts its head is secretly a vocabulary genius. Most dogs tilt their heads sometimes, regardless of their specific word-learning ability, and the gifted word learner study specifically highlighted a correlation between tilt frequency and vocabulary skill, not a universal rule about what every single tilt means for every single dog. But it does suggest that at least part of the behavior is tied to active listening and recognition, rather than being purely reflexive or accidental. There's a second explanation worth understanding here, one rooted not in cognition but in simple anatomy. Dogs, unlike humans, have long snouts that occupy a significant portion of their central and lower field of vision. When a dog looks directly at your face from straight ahead, its own muzzle partially blocks the lower half of your face, exactly the region containing your mouth, which happens to carry an enormous amount of expressive information, shape, movement, subtle emotional cues. Animal behaviorists, including researchers like Stanley Coren, who has written extensively on canine cognition and behavior, have proposed what is sometimes called the muzzle obstruction hypothesis. By tilting its head to one side, a dog shifts its eyes relative to its own snout, clearing the obstruction and gaining a better, more complete view of your mouth and facial expression. In this view, the head tilt is not primarily about sound at all. It is a dog trying to see you more clearly, adjusting its own anatomy to gather more visual information about your face during a moment it has identified as worth paying close attention to. Consider how well this pairs with the Andics team's findings. A gifted word learner dog hears its favorite toy's name and immediately wants to gather as much information as possible about what you mean and what happens next. Tilting its head both signals heightened cognitive engagement and physically improves its view of your face at the exact same moment. Two explanations reinforcing rather than contradicting each other. There's a third thread to this story, one rooted in a completely different sense altogether, hearing itself. Dogs have remarkably mobile outer ears, called pinnae, capable of rotating independently to help pinpoint the exact direction a sound is coming from, a skill critical for a species that relied heavily on hunting and detecting prey long before domestication. Some researchers studying auditory localization in animals have proposed that tilting the head slightly changes the relative position of each ear, allowing a dog to triangulate a sound's exact source and timing with greater precision, particularly useful for sounds that are complex, layered, or carry meaningful acoustic detail, exactly the kind of sound a spoken word or sentence represents compared to a simple, single-tone noise. With these three threads together, cognitive engagement with meaningful words, improved visual access to your face, and finer acoustic triangulation of complex sound. And the head tilt stops looking like one single, simple behavior with one single cause. It looks more like an overlapping cluster of adaptations, several different systems in a dog's brain and body all converging on the exact same small physical gesture, each one independently making that gesture useful in its own way. There is an interesting piece of supporting evidence for the muzzle obstruction hypothesis worth mentioning, one that comes from comparing different dog breeds rather than different individual dogs. Breeds with especially long snouts, like collies or greyhounds, tend to have their lower field of vision blocked more severely than breeds with short, flattened snouts, like pugs or bulldogs, whose faces barely obstruct their own sightline at all. If the muzzle obstruction hypothesis holds real explanatory weight, long-snouted breeds should show a stronger tendency to tilt their heads than short-snouted breeds, since they have considerably more visual obstruction to correct for in the first place. Anecdotal observation among veterinarians and dog trainers has long noted exactly this pattern: longer-snouted breeds tilting more frequently and more dramatically than flat-faced breeds, lending real-world weight to what might otherwise sound like a purely theoretical anatomical argument. It is also worth asking whether this behavior is something dogs invented entirely on their own, or something connected more specifically to life alongside humans. Wolves, the closest living relatives to domestic dogs, do tilt their heads occasionally, but nowhere near as frequently or as directly toward human faces as domestic dogs do, since wolves obviously did not evolve alongside a species constantly speaking to them in a language they were expected to partially decode. Researchers studying domestication, including some work building on Andics' broader family dog project research, suggest that the intensity and directedness of head tilting in domestic dogs may be at least partly a product of thousands of years living embedded inside human households, surrounded constantly by human speech, a uniquely rich and unusual acoustic and social environment no wild canine ancestor ever experienced. In other words, the head tilt may be a genuinely ancient anatomical and auditory tool, present in some basic form across canines generally, that domestication and constant proximity to human language sharpened and amplified into the specific, directed, human face-oriented gesture we recognize today. This kind of layered explanation is actually fairly common in animal behavior research, and it is worth pausing on why. Evolution rarely designs a single behavior for a single, clean purpose the way an engineer might. Instead, behaviors that serve multiple useful functions simultaneously tend to be reinforced and preserved more strongly than behaviors serving only one narrow purpose, precisely because they pay off in more situations. A head tilt that helps a dog see better, hear better, and signal engagement all at once is, from an evolutionary perspective, a remarkably efficient little gesture, far more likely to stick around across generations than a gesture serving only one of those three functions alone. This also helps explain something dog owners have long noticed anecdotally: that head tilting seems to show up more during emotionally significant, attention-demanding moments, specifically hearing your name, hearing an exciting question like whether they want to go for a walk, encountering a genuinely novel sound rather than during routine, low-stakes background noise. If the gesture were purely reflexive, it should appear roughly as often for meaningless sounds as for meaningful ones. The fact that it clusters so heavily around emotionally and cognitively significant moments is itself evidence that something more complex than simple reflex is driving it. None of this diminishes how genuinely endearing the behavior is to witness. If anything, understanding the layered biology behind it arguably makes it more affecting, not less. Your dog is not performing a cute trick when it tilts its head at the sound of your voice. Multiple systems inside that small skull, a brain actively working to recognize and engage with something meaningful, eyes repositioning for a clearer view of your face, ears fine-tuning their read on the exact sound you just made, are all converging in that exact moment, all because you said something your dog has learned matters. There's one more piece worth adding, since it connects this small gesture to something much larger than sound localization or muzzle anatomy. Researchers studying the human-dog bond, including work by Miho, Nagasawa, and Takefumi, Kikusui in Japan, have found that mutual gaze between dogs and their owners triggers a measurable rise in oxytocin, the same bonding hormone released between human parents and infants during eye contact, in both the dog and the human simultaneously. A head tilt, by design, extends and intensifies exactly this kind of sustained, direct eye contact between a dog and the person speaking to it. The gesture that looks so purely adorable from the outside may, on the inside, be quietly reinforcing one of the oldest chemical bonds shared between two different species on the planet, one small tilt at a time. So the next time you say your dog's name or ask an exciting question in that voice they clearly recognize, and that familiar head tilt appears right on cue, you will know there is nothing simple happening in that small, tilted skull. There is a brain locking onto meaning, eyes repositioning for a better look at your face, and ears fine-tuning their read on your voice. 3 separate systems, all converging on you, all at once, simply because your dog has decided that whatever you just said is worth understanding completely.